Hello and welcome to Book World: The Great Escape. We're here. It's Wednesday, the 20th of April, and I have a special guest today. But before we get to him, Mike, how was your weekend? Or actually,
Yep.
last 2 weeks, right? Because we
Oh, yeah,
we missed
yeah.
last week. So yeah,
Well, we had uh, their kids come in for Easter. Our grandson is 13 months old, and we had a great time tooling around with him. I did catch. He did have a stomach flu, which we didn't find out later, which I managed to catch.
oh no,
So today's my first uh, semi-regular day. But before that, I was at the Longview Art Walk and did real good. Real. We had an inside booth. It was the wind was howling, and we were inside the Vera Bank lobby and sold a lot of books, and we didn't get blown away. And
good.
this Saturday, I guess you're going to as well as Chautauqua Festival. I
Supposed to be
noticed that
high
it's supposed to be
winds.
high winds again, so
Well, see,
we'll
we
see
we
how that
have
goes.
we have a trick. We take cat litter containers and we have them filled with water, and we actually anchor the canopy to the cat litter containers.
On the night of the Art Walk, I think you could have put 4 elephants on either side of the canopies, and it would not have made a difference. So let's hope it's not as bad.
Well, I had some interesting stuff happen for my 2 week little stint there. We went to the SciFi in Lake Charles, Louisiana. For those sci-fi geeks who, will understand, I had a major sci-fi fangirl moment. I got to actually interview Tim Russ. For those who don't know, he is the Vulcan from Voyager.
Mhm.
I also got to interview Patricia Tallman, who was Night of the Living Dead. She was also Kira Nerissa's stunt double. She was a couple other Klingon stunt doubles. So, yeah, major sci-fi geek fangirl moments, and my
Well,
head just exploded to the point that I had lots of questions, but I just couldn't get them out of my mouth. It was kind of one of those situations, and so yeah.
well, congratulations.
Thank you. The other thing we did was we went and visited his New York side, my husband's New York side of the family. So those who are prayer warriors, please pray for his dad and for his family. His dad is not doing well, so just kind of
Oh,
keep
I'm
them in
sorry
your
to hear
thoughts and
that.
prayers.
Mm.
So Todd, how has it been for you? Because for those who don't know, let me introduce him real quick. Mr. Todd was my original cover artist for my books. The first 13 Team Angel series books, he did every single one of those. And I get so many compliments on them. So when we're talking about a cover artist, I'm like, oh, Todd Engel, we need to get him on here. So thank you for coming on, Todd.
Oh, you're so welcome, and you're always so wonderful to work with. So
Thank
you're
you.
definitely fave author.
I appreciate it. So, how have you been doing? What have you been doing? That sort of thing.
CJ and Mike are pretty much the same in my world. Day in, day out, I'm cranking out the book covers, and I love
Mhm.
doing it. I really do love doing it.
So, how did you get started in it?
Well, my background goes way back in graphic design for 30 years ago. And actually, my wife and I both were running a graphic design agency together, and uh, had an office in Nashville, and we did all kind of things, everything from brochures to annual reports to sales booths and things like that. And then along the line, she became more interested in actually fine art painting.
Hmm. Oh, and she is like a crazy good artist. Like you think these pictures are real. I've seen them.
She
It's
is
kind of
totally,
like Mike. It's kind of like Nancy's Durham's
Mm.
drawing.
Okay.
Only this is with paint.
totally. In fact, the painting right behind my head, the little bluebird, that's one of hers.
Wow.
Can't see, but she loves to paint wildlife,
Mhm.
and she is a realism artist, and she loves that. I think the advertising business was kind of stressing her out, so she got out of that. And along that was about the time that Photoshop and everything was coming along.
Mhm.
So I just kind of dove in there and started learning Photoshop and learning the basics of good design, things like that.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So so I had a long history in graphic design and started working with some speakers and authors, business speakers who were also authors, and I would do their marketing materials and their book covers sometimes. Some of them already had their book covers done through like New York places and so forth like that. But that opened the door to other book cover things, and I sort of slid into that, and I just enjoy it. So pretty much now that's all I do.
So here's the first cover he ever did for me. It's my very first book called Strength from Within, which, as you can see, it won an award. But the cover itself, I absolutely loved. Um, this was the second one, The Call to Duty, and we kind of used that to kind of theme the next one. And then the Grace Restored series, and then the Divine Legacy series has some of my favorites on there. But my favorite, all-time favorite cover that you've done is the Summer Secrets one.
Oh yeah, yeah, love that one.
So
Awesome,
that
awesome.
was my favorite. So how do you go about, because people say they don't judge a book by the cover, but we all know that that's not true.
Mhm.
So how do you come up with your ideas?
Well, you know, it's interesting, and I get asked that all the time. Um, and I will tell them, you know, when I'm getting ready to start designing, I read the same thing you do. Basically, I read what's on the back of the book,
Hmm.
um, the story of the book on the back of the book. I read that, then I talk with the authors, mostly through email, and get any further input, and we talk about things.
Like, what's your least favorite color? What's your most favorite color?
And we just take off from there. And you know, CJ, you were so wonderful because you had some, you know, good insights on the visuals
Hmm.
that I would not have had from just reading the back of the book. So
Hmm.
that was a great partnership there.
Well, I think my favorite one that I picked out was Katie McKenna. So this is the one book that we started actually. We did the Strength from Within. We kind of talked through the Holy Flame trilogy, but this one in particular is the one where I started having the input a little bit more. And he told me to go to Dreams Time for a lot of the stock footage and kind of go from there. And I picked Katie McKenna.
Yeah.
So she's one of my favorites. But what you do with my ideas to transform them into the covers is kind of mind blowing. It's like we get them in the email and I'd show Super Happy and we'd be like, yes, that's perfect. That's gold. So,
Yeah.
how you do that, I don't fully get. It's like, God inspired or something, but you just
Yeah.
kind of took what was in my brain and put it there
I
and
think
made it better.
I think it is God inspired and God connected sometimes. And some and with some authors, you just have really good chemistry.
Hmm.
And for some reason, it just connects almost every time.
Hmm.
And I'm
So,
not sure. I think it's just two creative people launching out on a new venture.
That is always helpful.
Yeah.
Mike?
so Todd, because I figured you were asked the same questions many times, but um, when you're contacted about an author to create, for example, a book cover, um, do they provide you with uh, do most I guess most of the time do they provide you with back matter, the things that they feel are the main elements that they would like to see in the cover, or do they just give you, okay, here's the back matter, this is the synopsis, you run with it? uh, I mean, how does that work?
Um, and as CJ knows, there's a form I normally send to authors, and they complete.
Okay.
It's not terribly difficult, but it gives them room to put input in there. And they will often talk about, you know, the thematic elements or the key scenes in the book. Um,
Like if you have any
Oh,
pictures in mind,
right.
they give.
I like it when it's sort of open ended. Now with like CJ's books, I needed that extra input on some specific scenes. And fortunately, we were able to find them on the stock image companies, and there's a number of stock image companies you can use.
Mhm.
Um, the most difficult thing on a cover sometimes is when an author uh, has what I call very like quote scene specific, something
mhm.
actually that would require illustration, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Like as CJ knows, I build a lot of my covers from stock images or stock illustrations, but
Mm-hmm.
some people have such a specific idea about a scene from the book that is incapable of finding those images with stock sites. And then I will recommend, hey, if you got a little extra budget, go ahead and let's get something illustrated.
Mm-hmm.
So you can also create original covers that do not include stock images as well.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. And
And I
sometimes the covers have no stock in. I love sometimes when it's just a completely graphic cover, meaning
oh,
just color,
right.
just font treatment. I love that. That's a wonderful creative challenge for me.
That's
But I do
interesting.
also love blending those images together in
Mm-hmm.
Photoshop. I love that.
So,
It's
like
so,
for this, for example, sometimes you can't find what you're looking for. Like I found these two girls, but one of them had to have a specific color eye color, and you actually had to change those. So
yes.
sometimes you can change different elements within the stock photo
Mm,
itself.
right, right, right. That's the magic of Photoshop.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I've used both. I've used graphic artists that uh, that use stock images. I've also used some because I write fantasy for the most part that create original artwork for the cover. In fact, the lady in England, I use you give her the synopsis, the main elements of your story, and then she creates an image from that, and then of course you do the tit for tat, going back and forth until um, you agree on what the cover will look like. But is there a genre for a book cover that you find more challenging than others?
Mm.
Well, the like you were talking about the fantasy genre, that could be because that is a something that the author has created in their head. It's a
Hmm.
world that exists in their head, and they're trying to describe it to the rest of us. Sometimes that can be very, very difficult to come close to finding images to work with and stock sources. So it sounds like you, in that case, you found a nice lady in England who could illustrate it. Was it an illustration, Mike?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me go. Do you have yours handy, Mike, or do you want me to go grab yours?
Uh, let's see. Well, I've got yeah. So this is like a this isn't actually the
Do you have Witch's Brew? Because that's a really
yeah
good one.
yeah. This is in the treasure hunt. This is the witch's brew. Of course,
It's green.
it's
Okay,
approved
how about
cookie,
how about the Escape from Wheel? That one's
and
purple. That one
yeah,
they should be able to
that
see.
one's purple.
There you go. But that one you can see where the elements had to be
Uh,
filled.
yeah, and Treasure Hunt Club was. But anyway, I've used both and been happy with both of them. I do kind of like for myself. I'm willing to spend a little bit more for an original illustration on a cover, simply because with fantasy, as you were pointing out, it's a little bit more complex. And of course, what's the purpose of a book cover? It's to catch the eye of someone, who possibly might buy your book. And a good book cover is your first step. And so, but I've used others that do the stock images and stuff, and been very happy with them as well. But I
Mhm.
assumed that's why I asked you that question. I assumed the fantasy might be a little bit more, challenging because of the things that you have mentioned. You know,
Yes.
Patty wants to know, are you a photographer at all? Would you use photography from a client slash author?
I am not a photographer. Um, and yes, I have used images from the author that they have provided. Yeah, we
hmm,
look at them and just depending on what the book is and what the cover need is. And yeah, I have definitely used them before.
So when you're creating this stuff, how do you kind of make it click? I know it's kind of a strange
Yeah.
and odd question, but how do you make it all click together?
Um, Usually the first step after I've read the material from the author about what the book is about, then I will start my image search through the various sources. And the author and I will discuss if there's any complications with the images or finding the right images. I might even share some of those images with the author before even designing.
Hmm.
if I think that would really help. Um, Otherwise, if I think these images are on target, I will go ahead and start designing. And I often will start with just the front cover because that's the main thing. Work on the front cover first. And I love blending the images together, creating something because you're going for drama and
Hmm.
something that's compelling.
Yeah, kind of
Having
like this one, Forever Fall. He took like a fall background and kind of blended it within these to bring those all together.
Yes, yes, I love that. And
So,
the models you found very compelling. I mean,
yep.
they're not only beautiful, but they just kind of draw you in.
So going from the stock photos and the front to the actual full cover,
Yeah.
how do you do that? Being a
Okay.
publisher, I'm kind of vaguely aware how to do it,
Uh-huh.
but some people are not aware of how you go
Yeah.
from creating just the front cover to the full thing.
Okay. Um, you probably could do all that in Photoshop, but I use a combination of Photoshop and also another program called Quark Express, which has been around a long time. With my gray hairs here, I'm an old school. So Quark. A lot of the new kids today use an Adobe program called InDesign,
Hmm. I've heard that.
which is a layout program like Quark Express. So in Photoshop, I will create all the blending, the main title fonts. Um, then I'll create if your viewers understand a TIFF image,
Hmm.
they probably understand JPEGs. But I would create a flattened TIFF image, bring that into my other layout program, Quark Express, which I have used to set up the printing template, which will go to the printer to be printed.
Now, where do you get that template from? Is I guess
Uh,
I kind of know the back end, so I know how to do it, but not everybody does.
yeah, yeah. Well, it depends on your publisher. You can get it from your publisher.
Depends on
Yeah, they
the
will
trim
provide
size.
the
Hmm.
printing. I'm sorry, Mike.
Depends on the trim size, doesn't it? Among other things.
And the book length.
Yeah, but yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And for your viewers, the template. I mean, it's just it has a bunch of lines on it and markings, and so they know how to trim it out and where the bleed area is and all that. I will
Hmm.
use Quark Express to set that up. So I'll bring my Photoshop image on the front cover into Quark Express, and the layout programs like Quark Express are very important and InDesign, particularly for the back cover, because the back cover is mostly text.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Now, I try to continue the storyline if possible on the back cover, which is normally around the edges or something, because most of the back cover is taken up with text. But that's how those two programs, Photoshop and Quark Express, work together, or Photoshop and InDesign, sort of
Yeah,
a
kind of like
dynamic duo.
this is one that I did, and the clocks are going through here, but they're also coming out the back.
Yeah.
So kind of the same idea.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I like that. I like that. And you did an excellent job of having the image under the text, but
Thank you.
still readable on the back cover.
Well, I had a good teacher. I'm just saying. Even though you didn't know you were teaching, I had a good teacher. So when you're doing all of this kind of half blind because you never read the actual story, you're kind of
Uh-huh.
going with what they've given you and that sort of thing. Um, what's the hardest aspect of it?
Remarkably, given the fact that it's mostly through email
Hmm.
correspondence, uh, remarkably, it works out well most of the times. If there's a problem, sometimes it's related to the fact that we're working through email communication,
Hmm.
and something was misunderstood, or maybe or something was inadvertently left out that was important to the author, and even in their letter to me saying this is the important things, they may have left it out. But yeah, we can work through those things. That's easily worked through. Um,
So do you have any like tips or tricks for those who are trying to design their own cover? I mean, we've all seen some of those very poorly designed covers, and we know that they reflect poorly on authors in general. So, for those who don't have the finances to maybe do one themselves, is there any tips and tricks that they can potentially utilize to kind of boost their cover? Because we all know that yes, the cover is this big, but it has to fit into like a little
Yeah.
itty bitty thumbnail and still stand out.
Right. And as the publishers often tell me, the title, they want the title big for those thumbnails. That's
Mhm.
totally understandable. So when you're searching through books online, you can see the title and see what's about. Excuse me. They want that. Many times as a designer, I would want to use smaller type.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes there's a case for that, but most of the time the publishers want the title larger so it can be seen. Uh, I would also say, do work if you're an author out there wanting to design your cover, work against making your cover too busy.
Mhm.
Usually, it's just a few images, or one image, or two image. Uh, yeah, work against it being too busy.
Like have one sort of focal point and then
Yeah,
maybe the rest just kind of fade.
yeah, because like Mike was saying with his cover, he talked with the illustrator about that, and they got it down to the area he liked it. Because you want compelling. I think it's a lot like looking at a movie poster for me.
Mhm.
I you know when you see movie posters, when you go to movies, and you're drawn in, like, oh, I want to look at that one. What is that trailer about? Um, they're usually very nicely blended images that give you hints into the story. Um, One or two can do it sometimes. The worst thing is when you try to cram too much stuff in there. It
So,
just confuses people.
so Todd, I know there's different packages. I bet you, I'm sure that you offer some authors only have book covers or need book covers for Amazon. Some need them for Ingram Spark and ebooks. And I
And
know that
audiobooks are
and
different.
and audio book covers are different.
Mhm.
Uh, does the package that you offer, is it all inclusive of those, or is that something that you sort of work on with discussions on the with the author?
Um, Usually they're priced independently. Oftentimes they don't come up as one package.
Hmm.
If I do on the front end that an author needed a book cover and an audio book and whatever else, whether it's bookmarks or something, we could look at all that and see if there's any. If we're doing them all at the same time, to see if there's any way to have some savings in there.
Oh,
Oftentimes
nice.
they come up individually though, after the fact, after the cover's done, so forth. Yeah.
So on the images that you create, because I've come across this again with some of the book cover designers I've used. So does the author have rights to the images on the book cover? Are there limitations to that in terms of how they use it?
Yeah, that is a great question. And you do want to make sure, if you're an author out there and you're ordering images, or you don't want to pull images off the internet and use them on your on your cover. And my understanding is that some of the watchdogs out there are really going after people who do that kind of thing. So I get mine through legitimate stock image companies. The stock image companies obtain the rights to the image, and you'll see it when you go to look at your image and order it. It'll say model, it's like royalty free or model released and that kind of thing. So that tells you it's okay to use. The images I normally get from companies will say something like it's good to up to 500,000 units of your book sold. So that
So
company,
if an author ever sells 500,000 units, then they're good for paying more.
yeah, you're right. Yeah, so you're really covered on that part of it. Now, authors should also know that the thing you can't use those images for are like taking a stock image. Let's say it's just one of CJ's models on the covers, and she was blended into the whole cover. But you can't take just her image and put it on a coffee cup and then sell it. or put it on a t-shirt, just her image, not the book cover design, but just her image, and sell it on a t-shirt. That part is forbidden.
Mhm.
You would have to buy, I'm trying to think what they call it now. It's extended royalties or something like that, extended rights to that image. But you can use the cover. Once the cover is designed, you can use that image on your website. You can make a postcard out of it, that kind of thing. There's a lot of opportunities for that.
Now, do
You
you ever
just
do
can't use the
any?
single image. You just can't use the single image
In,
absent the book cover to do that.
absent the book cover.
So,
Okay.
for example, we can't just pull one of these two off and literally just put them on a coffee cup.
That's
We
right.
need the whole thing.
I have to use the whole thing.
Yeah, and I do for those who are kind of watching their pennies. I did actually speak with a member person from Canva, and if you have the professional, you can use them for book covers. Because I have actually spoken to them specifically about that. So that is one. Dreams Time has stock photos. Shutterstock has stock photos. I'm trying to think of any other good places to go.
I've been using one called 123rf.com a lot lately. They're good images and affordable. It's 123rf for royalty free. 123rf.
Just
Also using
123rf.com.
pardon me, .com.
Okay.
123rf.com.
Patty says iStock.
iStock, iStock's a little more expensive. They have great images though. I also use Adobe stock images a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I have a subscription to Adobe Creative Suite, which it covers stock images and, well, actually,
Composite
no,
photos.
I'm sorry. You have to pay separate for the stock images, but that's how I get my Photoshop and everything. But it's a great service. Adobe Stock Photo.com is a great service.
And Patty says deposit photos is another good one.
Yes.
So we have about 3 minutes left. Is
Uh-huh.
there anything you would like to add? Any little nuggets or anything people can take away?
You know what? I would just encourage everybody to go for it. You got your book in your heart, book in your mind. Aside from the book cover, just I've seen so many authors just have so much fun and do such a good job. I just got through reading one of the books I designed, and it was so well written. It was so great, and the opportunities are just out there. You can let your creative you can let your creative mind go free and write these stories. They're awesome. And do a professional cover. Do a professional cover. You can't afford it the first time. Try the second.
There you go. Well, and ideally, whoever you have doing in a series, whoever you're doing the first cover, you probably should keep them throughout the series to keep it consistent and to keep it clear and clean.
Yeah. And I just try to, and I think I was taught this early in business, but I like to have good relationships with my authors and clients. I guess you might find some designers who are like, no, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it this way, and you take it or whatever. I don't like that.
Yeah, it kind of makes us a little leery on recommending people when they do that. So any graphic artists listening, keep the relationships good.
Keep the relationships good.
Yep.
So, well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing some of your insights. We really appreciate it. Just remember that people do judge the books by the covers. I've had thousands of compliments on my books, most of which were done, the covers were done by Mr. Todd Engel. And you can find his stuff at, let me see if I can get this correctly, Todd Engel dash, Todd Engel dash engelcreative.com.
Yes. Or the same thing on Facebook.
Perfect. So make sure to reach out to him if you're interested in having him do his covers. Take a look at the covers he has online. In the meantime, we missed last week due to a technical error on my behalf. I'll own that. We were traveling and I got bounced from another podcast and I didn't want to chance poor Mike being stuck on here by himself. So we moved last week's to next week. So next week, we're going to be discussing ARCs and beta readers, yay or nay. So make sure to come by next Wednesday at 1 o'clock p.m. Central Time. We'll be talking about that. In the meantime, thank you, Todd, for coming on. Make sure to check out his covers and cover arts. If you have any questions, make sure to reach out to him. I'm sure he'll answer them for you.
Thank you, CJ, and thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Todd.